Okay, I want to talk to you a little bit about Edward Hirsch's My Grandmother's Bed. I'd like you to have the poem in front of you. So if you haven't printed it out, print it out um, and follow along. And as I'm reading it, underline underline all the verbs and maybe circle the nouns. Maybe put a little rectangle around the adjectives because what Hirsch does really well is use a lot of concrete language, specific language. He avoids generalizations and abstractions. And if you choose your language carefully, if you choose a good verb, you can avoid adverbs, you can avoid wordiness. You don't have to say that someone, you don't have to say, oh, the bed felt so comfortable to sleep in when you can just say, it rocked me to sleep, the verb rocked, or I swayed. You don't have to say someone made me uncomfortable. If you just say, he shot me a look, I studied my shoes. There's lots of ways to suggest how you feel without actually saying it. So go through the poem and notice, I don't think you're going to be able to find anything really abstract. And at one point he brings in a comparison, comparing. You'll see what he does. He brings in a simile, see if you can locate where that is, and then it becomes a metaphor. And he doesn't have to say it again. He doesn't have to say what the metaphor is, but by using particular words, we know that he's extending that metaphor. So let me just read it out loud. It's always helpful to have a poem read out loud. And this is from Edward Hirsch's book, The Night Parade, from Knopf in 1996. The book was published. And I always want to I'm not sure if you know what a Murphy bed is. This is what the poem is about. His grandmother's bed is a Murphy bed. And in case you're not, I think it's clear what it is in a way in the poem, but it really, their beds are mostly, you find them in old apartment buildings. And they can go into the wall and then come out, and they're to save space. So you can, pull it out and then put it back in. And that's what he loved about it too, especially in the morning when they would put it away, and how wonderfully he describes that. So here it is, My Grandmother's Bed by Edward Hirsch. How she pulled it out of the wall, to my amazement. How it rattled and creaked, how it sagged in the middle and smelled like a used clothing store. I was ecstatic to be sleeping on wheels. It rolled when I moved. It trembled when she climbed under the covers in her flannel nightgown, kissing me softly on the head, turning her back. Soon I could hear her snoring next to me, her clogged breath roaring in my ears, filling her tiny apartment like the ocean, until I too finally swayed and slept, while a radiator hissed in the corner and traffic droned on Lawrence Avenue. I woke up to the color of light pouring through the windows, the odor of soup simmering in the kitchen, my grandmother's face. It felt good to be ashore again, after sleeping on rocky, unfamiliar waves. I loved to help her straighten the sheets and lift the Murphy back into the wall. It was like putting the night away when we closed the wooden doors again and her bed disappeared without a trace. So it was a wonderful memory. And as you can see, right, it's very rich in imagery, right, appealing to the senses. And not a lot of people include olfactory imagery, right? It's like he's got some nice, it smelled like a used clothing store, right? And the kitchen smelled like soup when he woke up. Um, and he has a lot of auditory. The radiator hissed, and things are rattled and creaked. He doesn't have to say the apartment was noisy. It kind of kept me awake. And it doesn't. Eventually, he's lulled to sleep by that. But he doesn't have to say it. He just uses those verbs. So go through. The discussion forum is up. Bishop's First Death in Nova Scotia. Robert Hayden's Those Winter Sundays. This poem. David Allen Evans's Neighbors. And so this is another poem to talk about and to kind of just study and learn from, right? You take the gems from these poems and then look at your own poetry. And after you've written a poem, say, do I have a lot of abstractions or generalizations? Are there places that are a little too wordy? Can I say something more concisely with a choice of a verb? Will that suggest something better than having to, have all these other words to, and am I telling too much? Can I show more? So just, it's something to think about. And it's a great poem in terms of what it accomplishes. And then that metaphor, right? Introducing the kind of ocean and the idea of like how he extends that. He wakes up, he comes ashore. Okay. See you online.